I am a patriot. I love our country. I am a strong and intelligent woman of color, and I have dedicated almost my entire adult life to protecting the safety, security, and the freedom of all Americans in this country. It was the attacks on 9/11.
Tulsi Gabbard unleashed a fiery takedown of Joy Behar on The View, leaving the entire studio frozen in shock as the clash exploded before their eyes. From the very first second, the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife, and Joy had no clue she was walking straight into a storm she couldn't escape. It all started when Joy, flashing that trademark smug grin, hurled one of her tired jabs. But this time, she went too far. With flimsy insults and shallow claims, she tried to corner Tulsi, but her attempt collapsed instantly. Tulsi, calm yet razor-sharp, locked her gaze on Joy and struck back with precision, dropping the unforgettable line that shook the room, calling her an idiot live on national television. Gasps erupted from the audience, and Joy's face turned crimson red as the entire dynamic flipped in a heartbeat. Tulsi leaned in with an unshakable presence, making it clear she would never be silenced or bullied. Not by Joy, and not by anyone else at that table. The other hosts squirmed nervously in their seats, sensing the heat rise as Joy tried desperately to regain her footing. She shuffled through her cue cards like they held the lifeline she needed, but her trembling hands and broken composure told the real story. Tulsi had seized command of the showdown, and there was no denying it. The power in that room now belonged to her.
Yes, we're getting a little bit far ahead of ourselves, but Franklin Graham finds you refreshing. He doesn't find me refreshing. Richard Spencer, the white nationalist leader, says he could vote for you.
Joy, this is why
you're on
here.
Tucker Carlson at least 10 times. Why don't you go on Chris Wallace's show?
This is why I'm here, because you and other people continue to spread these innuendos that have nothing to do with who I am.
Well, Hillary Clinton started it, and then you shot back at her, boy. You called her the queen of warmongers.
You doubled down, unfortunately, you doubled down on the baseless accusations that she made that strikes at the core of who I am. I'm a soldier. Because of the attacks on 9/11, I enlisted in the military to go after and defeat and destroy the evil that visited us on that day. I've served now for over 16 years, deployed twice to the Middle East during the height of the war, where every single day I saw firsthand the terribly high human cost.
Tulsi refused to give Joy a single opening, her eyes locked and her voice cutting through the room like a blade. "You think you can smear me and I'll just smile for the cameras?" She fired back, each word landing like a direct hit. Then came the gut-punching line. "I faced enemies overseas who were more honest than this." The audience gasped in disbelief as murmurs rippled across the room, while Joy nervously tried to laugh it off. But her darting eyes betrayed the panic setting in. The co-hosts shifted uncomfortably, exchanging uneasy glances, unsure if they should step in or let the clash rage on. Even the crew seemed frozen, their hands hovering as if afraid to cut the feed. Tulsi pressed forward, calm and deliberate, every sentence striking harder than the last. "You've built an entire career tearing down people you disagree with," she declared, pointing directly at Joy with laser precision. "But you picked the wrong person today." Gasps and scattered applause filled the air, fueling the flames of the confrontation. Joy opened her mouth to respond, but Tulsi cut her off like lightning. "No, you've had your turn. Now you're going to listen." The authority in her tone froze Joy in place, her trademark confidence evaporating before millions of viewers. Tulsi's eyes narrowed as she struck again with icy calm. "You call yourself a truth teller, but all you've done today is spread lies and cheap personal attacks." The weight of her words lingered, searing into the moment. The air grew suffocating as everyone realized this wasn't just television. It was history in the making. Tulsi stood her ground with the composure of a battle-tested warrior, unshaken even when Whoopi tried to twist the moment by painting her as defensive. But the attempt backfired instantly, collapsing in full view of the audience and leaving Joy even more exposed.
So, before I ask you the first question, what's happening with the telescope and the stuff?
Oh, gosh. The challenge is ongoing. The challenge is ongoing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
What is that?
So,
Just explain.
they decided, it was decided that they were going to go on sacred land.
Oh, yeah. I remember this.
And put up a telescope and do all this stuff. And the Hawaiians said, no, you're not going to do that. So it's been a fight. Tulsi's been at the forefront. Yeah. And I try to bring it up you know,
I remember.
when I can't, because I think sacred land is sacred land.
Yeah.
You can't, you know,
Yeah.
you can't
Anyway.
mess with it. So I have to ask you this instead. So we were just talking about EU Ambassador Sondland changing his testimony yesterday, that he had to be refreshed about quid pro quo, and you've been skeptical more than a lot of the Democrats about the impeachment inquiry. Were you surprised by what he did yesterday?
Well, look, the facts are important, and we'll get to that. I want to start with something that I think is also important about facts.
Defensive. Tulsi snapped back without hesitation, her voice slicing through the noise. No, I'm not defensive. I'm correcting you because you're wrong and you know it. The crowd broke into scattered applause, with some even leaping to their feet in support. Joy's cheeks burned a deeper red, but she forced a stiff, uneasy smile, pretending nothing was happening while her co-hosts shifted nervously, shooting worried glances at the cameras. No one dared to interrupt. This standoff had gripped the entire room. Tulsi leaned back slightly, composed and steady, but her words stayed razor-sharp. You invited me here to talk, yet all you've done is insult me. Tell me, is that what you call journalism? Her sarcasm dripped heavy, sparking laughter from parts of the audience. Joy, flustered and shaken, fumbled through her notes in a desperate attempt to pivot the conversation. But Tulsi wasn't letting go of the spotlight. This isn't about me disagreeing with you, Tulsi pressed on, her voice firm and unshakable. It's about you spreading misinformation to millions of viewers. On purpose. The accusation landed like a thunderclap, leaving the room in tense silence as everyone absorbed the sting of her words. Joy tried to stammer out a defense, her voice trembling. Well, that's just my opinion. But Tulsi cut her off instantly, sharp as steel. No, Joy, that's not opinion, that's a lie. And there's a difference. The audience erupted in gasps and applause, their reaction roaring louder than Joy's faltering words. For the first time, Joy looked truly cornered, her trademark bravado stripped away and replaced with visible unease. In that electrifying moment, Tulsi had fully seized control of the battlefield, dismantling Joy's argument in front of a live audience that would never forget what they had just witnessed.
That's why I ran for Congress.
We actually have the clip of Hillary Clinton, just to put this in
Just to
context
put it
of
in
what we're
context.
talking about. Let's take a look at that.
I'm not making any predictions, but I think they've got their eye on somebody who's currently in the Democratic primary and are grooming her to be the third-party candidate. She's the favorite of the Russians. They have a bunch of, sites and bots and other ways of supporting her so far. And that's assuming Jill Stein will give it up, which she might not, because she's also a Russian asset.
So
Really? I mean, this is outrageous. This is outrageous and offensive on so many levels. I've served as a member of Congress now for almost 7 years, receiving high-level national security and intelligence briefings, serving on the Foreign Affairs Committee, the Armed Services Committee, the Homeland Security Committee, working to ensure the safety and security of the people of this country. This is why I'm running for president, to continue that commitment of service.
So are you surprised, though, that when people see bots and things and all the things that we've sort of been seeing heading your way, that people have these questions? Because she's not the only one. Hillary, I don't think, is the only one. So what she's saying is she feels they are grooming you. You're saying nobody's grooming me. I'm doing what I'm doing because I'm a soldier and a patriot.
It's offensive to me as a soldier, as an American, as a member of Congress, as a veteran, and frankly, as a woman, to be so demeaned in
But you
such
called
a way.
her the personification of rock.
So demeaned
She's a woman,
in such
too.
a way. Well, I'm pointing to the fact that she has continued this legacy of being the world's police around the world, that has waged wars costing the lives of thousands of my brothers and sisters in uniform. I'm speaking out against that and
What's
to
your evidence
change
to that?
to change.
Well, can I?
Are you
can I-
serious?
Let's hear it.
Are you serious?
Let's hear it.
I served in the war
Not
in
you,
Iraq.
her. You're saying that she's-
exactly.
she's a
I
warmonger.
served
How do
in
you
the
come
war
up with
in
that?
Iraq
Yeah.
that she championed. She championed a regime change war
Did you not
in
believe
Libya.
in that war?
I believe the lies that were told to us.
Well, so did she.
So it is indisputable. It is indisputable.
Joy's hands gripped her cue card so tightly it looked like she might tear them in half, clinging to them as if they could save her collapsing control. She tried to steady herself with a forced glance toward the camera, but Tulsi's stare never wavered, unyielding, relentless, and fierce. You've built your platform on attacking people like me, Tulsi declared, her voice calm yet brimming with authority. But here's the truth, Joy. You can't bully someone who's fought on real battlefields. The crowd erupted in thunderous cheers, the energy of the room flipping instantly to Tulsi's side. Joy tried to muster a smirk, but it fell apart under Tulsi's piercing gaze. "I'm just asking questions," Joy muttered weakly, but Tulsi struck back without missing a beat. "No, you're making accusations and you're doing it to undermine my character because you can't win with facts." Each word hit like a precision strike, leaving the studio buzzing with electricity. "You called me an idiot," Tulsi continued, leaning in just enough to make Joy recoil. "And yet, here you are, dismissing my record, my service, and my experience simply because it doesn't fit your narrative." Joy let out a brittle laugh, desperately glancing at her co-hosts for support. But none of them dared to step into the firestorm Tulsi had unleashed. "I've served my country for years," Tulsi pressed on, her voice steady as steel. "I've walked through war zones, I've seen lives destroyed, and I will not be belittled by someone who has never spent a single day in my shoes." The audience roared, some even rising to their feet in applause, while Joy's face twisted with shock and frustration as the realization sank in. She was trapped in a battle she couldn't win. One co-host tried to awkwardly shift the show back to safer ground, but Tulsi cut in before the momentum could slip away, holding the reins of control with an iron grip.
To say anything other than the fact
Can I
Hillary,
say
let me just close this out, that Hillary Clinton throughout her career has led with a foreign policy of interventionism and being the world's police, going and toppling dictators in other countries that has caused such destruction and loss of life. I'm against that. I'm running for president to change that. Rather than actually debate me on the issues, she and others are resorting to these smear tactic campaigns, seeking to undermine me, smear my character, and sending a message to anyone who dissents: toe the line, or you too will be smeared.
"We're not moving on until this is clear," Tulsi declared, her tone steady and unshakable, locking the entire room in suspense. "You don't get to spread lies and then hide behind a smile." Joy, visibly rattled, tried to interject with a shaky, "Well, Tulsi, maybe if you—" But Tulsi sliced in instantly. "No, Joy, stop. You've had your turn. Now you're going to listen." Her words hit like a command, freezing the studio in place as the crowd erupted once again. Even the camera crew hesitated, unsure whether to cut to commercial or keep filming the chaos unfolding live. Tulsi pressed on without flinching, her voice calm but cutting. "You accuse me without a shred of evidence, then pretend you're just asking questions. That isn't journalism. It's manipulation." The audience gasped, followed by a wave of applause that shook the studio walls, making it clear they agreed. Joy's shoulders sank lower, her fight slipping away as Tulsi leaned in with pinpoint precision. "Here's the truth," Tulsi fired, her tone unwavering. "You call me names, you attack my integrity. But the fact is, you're threatened by me, threatened by someone who refuses to play by your rules." The silence from Joy spoke louder than any defense she could have made, the tension gripping not only the studio, but everyone glued to their screens at home. And then came the knockout line, the one destined to dominate headlines everywhere. "So, here's my advice, Joy. If you don't want to be called out, stop acting like an idiot on national television." The crowd erupted in a mix of wild cheers and gasps of shock, as Joy's expression shifted from stunned to furious. She opened her mouth, then snapped it shut again, shooting a desperate glance toward the producers for help that never came. Tulsi leaned back in her chair, calm and composed. Her stare locked on Joy, who sat cornered, defeated, and with no comeback in sight.
I do want to ask you something else. Kamala Harris said recently that her race and gender are, quote, the elephant in the room, and that many still question if America is ready for a woman, and specifically a woman of color, to be president. And you're also a woman of color.
Yeah.
Is that, you feel, been a problem for you? Do you agree with her?
No, I think the American people are ready for a president that will put people ahead of politics, put people ahead of profits.
Then why is she saying that, you think?
You have to ask Kamala that. I can't speak to why she's saying that. But what I've seen in our travels across New Hampshire, we just came from New Hampshire yesterday, across the early states, we have some New Hampshire people here, is we are building a coalition to bring about the systemic change we need to see to take our government back from the rich and powerful who control it and make it so our government is truly of, by, and for the people.
"You can spin this however you want," Tulsi declared firmly, her voice echoing through the tense studio. "But the people watching know exactly what happened here today." The audience erupted in thunderous applause, the kind that shook the walls and made it clear the crowd had chosen their side. Tulsi hadn't just defended herself. She had flipped the entire exchange upside down, leaving Joy visibly shaken and stripped of her usual bravado. The producers finally cut to commercial, but the damage was already done. And it was irreversible. Social media was already ablaze, clips spreading like wildfire across every platform, ensuring that this fiery clash would live online forever. When the show returned, Joy tried to play it cool, but her quieter, hesitant voice betrayed her shaken confidence. Tulsi, on the other hand, sat poised and unshaken, the undisputed victor of the showdown. It was raw, unscripted television at its peak, the kind that grabs viewers and refuses to let go. Joy had aimed to put Tulsi on the defensive, but instead found herself dismantled, humiliated, and cornered on her own stage. The tension hung heavy like a storm cloud, pressing down on the audience, the co-hosts, and especially Joy, who couldn't mask the cracks in her usual swagger. Tulsi leaned back with a faint smile, fully aware she had seized complete control of the set. Joy made a weak attempt to steer the conversation towards safer ground, but the audience wasn't buying it. They were still buzzing, whispering, and reacting to Tulsi's unapologetic takedown. One co-host tried nervously to lighten the mood with humor, but the electricity in the air wouldn't fade, as Tulsi's piercing gaze stayed locked on Joy, keeping the pressure suffocating. Finally, Joy turned with a forced softness, mumbling, "I think we just had a misunderstanding." But Tulsi shut it down instantly. "No, Joy," she said, her voice firm and commanding. "We had a very clear understanding. You came at me with false accusations, and I responded with the truth." The audience roared again, clapping and cheering, refusing to let Joy sweep it under the rug. Joy plastered on a tight smile, clinging to scraps of dignity. But Tulsi wasn't done. Leaning forward, calm and unshaken, she delivered the final blow. "You can call me whatever names you want, Joy, but the next time you try to discredit someone, make sure you have the facts first, because not everyone will sit here and take it." The words landed like a knockout punch, silencing the room in stunned awe. Joy opened her mouth but quickly closed it again, realizing the fight was over. Defeat was written all over her face. Tulsi had won, and absolutely everyone knew it.
Because recently on your show here...
I was just going to get to that.
Good. Helping you out.
You want me to ask you the question?
Yeah,
No,
and-
look,
ask
some
the
of
question.
you
Ask the
have
question.
accused me of being a traitor to my country, a Russian asset, a Trojan horse, or a
We haven't accused you.
useful idiot, I think was the
Well,
term that you
useful.
used. Which basically means that I'm naive or lack
That's a
intelligence
Russian
to
term.
know what's going
they
on.
They use that.
I want to let your viewers know exactly who I am.
All right.
Set the record straight. I am a patriot. I love our country. I am a strong and intelligent woman of color, and I have dedicated almost my entire adult life to protecting the safety, security, and the freedom of all Americans in this country. It was the attacks on 9/11.
By the time Tulsi walked off that set, social media had already erupted in flames. Clips of her calling Joy an idiot and demanding accountability were spreading like wildfire, with hashtags climbing the charts before the broadcast had even ended. Political commentators quickly weighed in. Fans celebrated Tulsi's fearless takedown, and critics of The View hailed it as one of the most satisfying smackdowns in daytime television history. Joy, meanwhile, chose silence. She stayed quiet for the rest of the day, avoiding the frenzy altogether. But that silence only poured gasoline on the fire, making the viral clip spread even faster. Tulsi embraced the moment, releasing a short statement later that evening, thanking viewers for their support and reminding them that standing up for the truth isn't always comfortable, but it's always worth it. Her words struck like lightning, racking up thousands of shares and comments, cementing her image as someone unafraid to take on even the most hostile stages. In the end, Tulsi didn't just survive her appearance on The View. She dominated it, controlled it, and left a mark neither Joy Behar nor the show itself could erase anytime soon. This wasn't just another heated TV spat. It became a national reminder that even on carefully managed platforms, the truth can cut through and command the spotlight. And when it does, it's unforgettable. For Joy, the sting of that clash would linger, hanging over her like a shadow every time she sat back in that chair. Because one guest had dared to call her out without fear, without apology, and without backing down. And that guest was Tulsi Gabbard, who walked off that stage not just as a guest, but as the victor of a battle that the whole nation watched unfold.